in this. And my big question for the day is what is happening in the last week, is this what people voted for? And if it's true that they did vote for what's going on right now, I want to know why they're voting for it. Now, in order to get some type of basis here, let's take a look at what Donald Trump inherited from the last administration. And I'm going to try to keep this down to about 10, 11, maybe 12 things. I'm just going to run through it real quick. So this is what Trump inherited. 2.9% inflation, which is very good. He inherited a 4.1 unemployment rate, which is excellent. He inherited the Dow Jones stock market at 44,000, which is incredibly high. It's been breaking records for the last few years on a daily basis. A manufacturing boom inside the United States, which is amazing. A Gaza ceasefire, something that Donald Trump was talking about doing when he got into office, but he doesn't have to do it because it's already been done. Violent crime is at a 50-year low. So when we talk about crime rates and all this stuff being a problem, know that it's been trending down for like about 30, 40 years already. That's what the numbers actually say when you look them up. So let's just go with that. Crime is down. Along with that, Donald Trump talks about, when he's talking about energy, he wants to talk about drill, baby, drill, that we need to do this. I don't know if anybody disagrees with that. Right now, the United States oil and gas production has surged to record highs. So that's already been done. Also, prescription drugs, a cap has been put on that. And more specifically, insulin has been capped at $35. Now, we're going to talk about this a little bit later. Continuing, during the last 4 years, and Donald Trump has inherited this, is that there's been the largest ever small business boom. 21 million new applications have been put in the last 4 years. What else happened in the last 4 years? There's been a raising of taxes on big corporations and a lowering of taxes on the working class. Considering that more people are working class, you might think that this has been a good thing. There's also been a boom in clean energy. We're talking electric, we're talking solar, we're talking wind. And as much as somebody like Elon Musk is pushing Donald Trump and all that, and he's acting a certain way, let's not forget that Tesla's an electric car, so he actually is about clean energy in some ways, but likes to talk a different game when he's trying to rile up the types of people that vote for Donald Trump. Okay, so let's move on from that. It's already 3 minutes in. Let's push past what was. Let's move on to see what are the things that people voted for and what are they getting. In the last week, Donald Trump has been signing a huge amount of executive orders to start moving things along. Now, you can get things through if it's an executive order that doesn't go up against the Constitution, but there's been a couple of things that that is unconstitutional that he's trying to do, and we'll throw in a little bit of that today too to talk about that. So let's take a look at the first thing he did, or one of the things he did. That $35 cap on insulin that we talked about, that's gone. So now Big Pharma can charge whatever they want, and it's not just for insulin, it's for any medication. So for you Trump supporters out there, I don't know if you voted for that. Like, was there anybody going, God, I want my insulin to be higher. Please make my drugs more expensive. That I really want that. So that's something that you have this week. Excellent, very good. The United States also has been removed, or Donald Trump removed the United States from the Paris Climate Accord, meaning that we're one of the very few countries in the world that are not going to do anything to try to reverse climate change. We are also removed from the World Health Organization. If you don't think that's important, let's understand something. There's only 2 countries in the world that are not in the World Health Organization. One of them would be Liechtenstein, and one of them now would be us. That's it. That's the only company we have. Donald Trump this week revoked Executive Order 11246. So what's that? And who cares if it's been revoked? Well, let's go over it. Starting now, or employers are allowed to discriminate against people based on sex, race, religion, or sexual orientation. How did this happen? Because he reversed an executive order that was put in, I believe, in 1964 or 1965, where employers could not fire you based on your gender or your sexual orientation or your religion, but it also goes that they don't have to hire you. So if they see that you're black or you're a woman or whatever it might be, they don't have to hire you now. Like there's no thought, there's nothing in our government that would stop somebody from discriminating against that. So I don't know how many Trump supporters are thrilled about this. Like, this is amazing. I'm so happy now that you can discriminate against people or fire people at will for no reason. But you can do it now, so good job. Now, when we're talking about law and order, for example, Donald Trump was very much talking about law and order, and we have to do all this stuff, and we don't want illegal immigration because a lot of them are criminals. Well, unfortunately, what he didn't say to everybody is that the chance of an illegal immigrant in this country being a criminal the chance of them being a criminal is much less than an American-born citizen. If you work out the numbers on it, they're not criminals. They're not the ones coming over the border either that are released from, what did he say, insane asylums and jails. This is ridiculous. This is not happening, not at the level that he's talking about. Once again, it's American citizens that are way more doing criminal acts than these immigrants are. But here's the interesting part of that. Even if you don't want to agree with that, one of the things that you might agree with is that if you are a person that's into law and order and you're worried about all these criminals, Donald Trump also pardoned 1,500 criminals or insurrectionists that were responsible for January 6th. So you're looking at violent criminals here, you're looking at people that were abusing and violently smashing cops over the head, and I don't know how many of them died, I forgot that number, but it wasn't zero, let's put it that way. And these people were trying to overturn the United States. So what message does this give when you say that you're against criminals, but you're literally letting out criminals who did violent acts against the United States, against people, against our police? Well, what it says is that if you want to do those types of illegal acts, as violent as they may be, just do it in Donald Trump's name and you don't have a problem. So we're going to have more of these problems. So there's no way you could tell me that you're against criminals when you are happy about Donald Trump releasing 1,500 criminals. By the way, I think one of them has already been arrested within one day of him being let out. So let's just leave it at that. Also, it's very interesting. What else did Donald Trump do? This is the most amazing thing. He halted the National Institute of Health this week, which is the NIH. Now, what amazing thing did he do? Well, it officially ends cancer research. It officially ends heart research, Alzheimer's, and any other disease you could think of where scientists are trying to figure out treatments or cures. Like, we literally have stopped it. So I don't know how to get across this stuff to you more specifically or harsh enough. If you're a Trump supporter and you woke up this morning and said, thank God we stopped research for cancer. I mean, who the heck wants a cure for cancer? Who the heck wants to have better treatment for people with heart issues? All of that stopped, which is very much in line, and I know some people hate to say it, but along with Nazi Germany, is that they get rid of people that are experts in fields. They get rid of people who are intelligent because they don't like that type of thing. And so we're doing it here. We're literally stopping scientists. So I don't know how to say it any other way. We have stopped cancer research inside the United States. Excellent. Good job. Now, this, of course, is a precursor to what Robert Kennedy wants, is because he wants to end having vaccines because he says there's no such thing as a safe vaccine. Well, okay, but so we want people to have polio, we want people to have measles, we want to have people to It's insane. So what's going to happen now is that you're going to see a rise in all of these things. And this is very interesting to me because you get somebody like Kennedy who speaks against vaccines, and he's not a scientist, he's not an immunologist, he's just a guy. He's a lawyer and from the Kennedy family, which we'll talk about this later. But do you think he's the smartest person in the bunch, or do you think he had a lot of money backing him up and he had a lot of time to study and the teachers pushed him through school? Well, okay, let's take away part of that. The fact is he's not an expert in science, and yet he's going to be the one that's going to be responsible for moving it to the next level, to take away vaccines inside the United States. So we're going to try to eliminate that. Because he says it once again, vaccines, they're not healthy. This is coming from a guy who was a heroin addict for 14 years. So let me get this straight. A vaccine against, say, measles is bad, but heroin seems perfectly fine. Okay, try to figure that one out for yourself. Let's talk about what else happened this week. So there was a bishop that was in the middle of her sermon. She did have a plea to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance that they have some empathy and some compassion for people that are very worried these days. The LGBTQ community, there's immigrants, Hispanic people, and I mean that, by the way, Hispanic people, because it's already started where they're starting this deportation. And they're not going after the criminals, as like they like to say, because they let out a bunch of criminals, like I told you before. So it's not about that. That's about bad-mouthing people. But what they want to do is just round up Hispanic people, because it's already been done that they're getting into trouble because they're arresting Hispanic people that are American citizens. So it's about the brown people. So this a bishop was speaking to Donald Trump saying, could you have mercy? Could you have empathy? Basically speaking the same types of things that Jesus would say. And after that, he, of course, said a lot of derogatory things about her, not very professional, obviously, and demanded that she apologize, which is really weird because then a lot of people are saying that these people, such as her, should not be talking about woke or left-wing or Democrat liberal policies, which happen to be Jesus's policies, which is very interesting to me and very sad because a lot of people that claim to be religious, claim to be Christian, are following the word of Donald Trump. They're not following the word of God. They're not following the Bible. They go by whatever Donald Trump says. Because if you're going to get angry at a religious figure talking about the things that Jesus did, such as welcoming the stranger and love and caring about people and being empathetic and caring and loving, and that's a problem for you, I don't know what to tell you. Now, what I want to do, because this is how bad it is, I looked up a video, and the video is entitled, Trump urges quote-unquote woke bishop to apologize after viral tirade, and calling her a Trump hater. Now, you might think that there would be some backlash because there's a lot of Christians in the United States. But I'm not going to jump around here. I'm just going to read through the comments for you to show you, again, as a social scientist, how odd this is that people are not even, like, they actually love Donald Trump more than Jesus, which is amazing because they're taking his word over the Bible's word. So just going through the comments here, which have thousands of likes and replies. Here's the first one, 16,000 likes on it with 502 replies. She's not a bishop, but rather a woke political activist. I don't want to be the one to tell you, but when you're a socially conscious human being, or you're a social justice warrior, that's what Jesus was. That's what he preached. Jesus was the most woke being that's ever walked the face of the planet. That's all he talked about was social justice. So the fact that these people talk like this is amazing. Next, she's not a minister, she's an activist. It wasn't a sermon. It wasn't the place or time to do this. She's a bishop doing a sermon in a church. That's not the place or time? What are you talking about? The bishop was a wolf in sheep's clothing. She's not a bishop. They should be scared. 75 million voters are sick of these types of clowns. So 75 million people disregard the Bible but call themselves Bible or thumpers or whatever, or Christians, but they don't want to follow it. They don't want to listen to a bishop or a priest or a pastor anymore when they talk about directly what's happening in the Bible. Interesting. More, typical of a woke person. I would have left. There's 75 million people who are done with this type of garbage. Interesting. And it's the same thing over and over and over again. I could go more, but I don't want to waste too much time on the show on that. But I think you get the point of what I'm talking about. Just crazy. Let me backtrack a little bit. When I talked about that they revoked Executive Order 11246, meaning that you are allowed now to discriminate on race, gender, and all that, let me add something to that, because they also took away DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, on the surface, we talk about a meritocracy that, and I think we could all agree with this, right? We want the best people in the best jobs, right? Like, I don't want somebody getting a job that they're not qualified for if they're gonna fly a plane and I need to get from here, let's say, to San Diego, right? Like, I don't want the person who's 100th on the list being put up to the top to get that job. Like, I think we can agree with this. But here's the thing. DEI, it's not about equality of outcome. It's about the equality of opportunity. And don't let them lie. It's about opportunity. And you could say that, okay, we're in the year 2025, do black people, do women, do certain people, do people that from low income backgrounds, do they get the same opportunities as other people? You could make a case to say that they do, but you would be wrong. And it's just plain and simple. Here's a couple of things you need to know. So of the studies that were done, and none of them say anything different, by the way, is that if you're going for a job and you have a resume and somebody's looking at your resume and your name is an ethnic name, you know, it's not like Billy Joe, Jim Bob, or Mary or something like that. If it's not a basic name that we're used to, and they pull up a different name that looks a little odd, that you haven't heard of before, most likely you're not going to get the job, or somebody else is going to be ahead of you, just based on the name, not if you are qualified. So if you're going to ask, do we need diversity, equity, and inclusion? Yes, because there's still a level of racism, whether it's implicit or explicit. That's your answer. But that's just relatively small compared to this next one I have for you. The number one predictor of whether a child is going to be successful in their life is their zip code. Think about that. You can predict the success of a child based on the zip code of where they live or where they're born. Knowing that, does it make sense to you that we should be giving opportunities to people that don't have them? Because if you think, for example, let's take golfing, for example. Not a great example, but it's an example. Do you think that only, let's say, old, out-of-shape white guys are the only ones that are good at golf? Because you don't see a lot of minorities? Like, is that what you think? Or do you think that there's a lot of people from certain areas of the world or country don't have enough money to spend $50,000 to join a golf club, for example, and to be able to do that sport? Because if they did, you would see much more of a diversity. right? Like, do you think that only white guys know how to swim well, and that's why they're the only ones who make the Olympics? Or do you think that if, let's say communities where there were more minorities and they had swimming pools and more access to recreation centers where they could swim and have access to, let's say, Olympic-sized swimming pools, do you think maybe the diversity would change in the Olympics? Of course it would, right? Do you think that only white people know how to graduate from Yale because they're the smartest, or they're the only ones that have the money and time to be able to get in, right? As an example, I come from a poor family. Like, over and over and over again, in order for me to be equal with some of my peers, I had to do way more work. I paid for most of my college. I didn't have my parents paying for it. So I had to spend a lot of time paying it back. And there was nobody in my life that basically gifted me, or I got an inheritance of thousands, or let's say a house where somebody just popped me $1 million house. Like, that doesn't happen in some people's lives. So the thought that people don't need opportunity is ridiculous. So don't let these conservatives tell you this garbage, that it's all about that liberals want equality of outcome. That's not true. A liberal would just want equality of opportunity. And you can see this everywhere, right? I even rescued, one of my dogs is a rescue. When you look at him, he was a horrible dog at first, right? Like, his behaviors were terrible. He had social anxiety. I mean, it was just, he was impossible. He would tear things up all the time. Was he born a bad dog, or did he come from an area where there was no opportunity, that he was being abused, and he wasn't being fed, he wasn't being played with, he had no loving attachments? But after giving him an opportunity, he's like the best dog you could ever want. And this is the thing when we're talking about human capital. If you allow people the opportunity to go to a good school, to actually have a full stomach when they go to school, you are going to realize that there's going to be much, much more competition for the rich white kids out there. And a lot of people don't want that. So let me move on. The show's getting a little bit long. What else did Donald Trump want to do this week? He wanted to end birthright citizenship, which is actually unconstitutional. So he wasn't able to do that with just a little flick of his pen. So that's up in the air. We'll see how that goes. Something else that's interesting. So he talked about, or he didn't really talk about, but his people who voted for him were like, oh, well, there's a lot of inflation, the price of eggs, the price of fruit, whatever. You know, if he can bring that down, you know, we're all about it, we'll vote for him. Well, but he never offered any solutions to that problem. And the reason he didn't is because in his mind, there are no solutions to it. But let me tell you what's going to happen. Because the price of eggs this week went up about 20 to 30%, depending on where you live. And that's on Donald Trump's watch. And it's going to get worse. Why? Here's something for you. 28% of farm workers have not shown up in Texas. 46% of farm workers have not shown up in California. What do you need to know about that? They're Hispanic, they're Mexican. These are the people that do those jobs. So how are you going to replace that? You won't. So now we're going to have food shortages. These prices are going to go up. Thank you very much. You asked for it and you got it. Now, you can try to replace some of these workers with white workers who wouldn't want to work that hard and are not going to work for slave wages. And so this is a problem. And again, this is going to cause inflation. And why don't these Mexican workers want to show up? Because they know Donald Trump is trying to deport them and keep saying that they're all criminals when they're hardworking people. Again, the percentage of Mexican workers coming over the border to work here, the percentage of them that are criminals is way less than American-born citizens. These are things you need to know before you start voting and destroying everybody's life. So what else can I add to this? I think I added enough. Hopefully you've made it through this whole show. And hopefully you're not getting angry at the messenger here. Part of this is to educate people, because once again, let's go back. Did you vote for this? And if you did, I want to know why. Like, are you high-fiving with your friends saying, yes, we ended cancer research this week? Absolutely. Yes, we let out 1,500 violent criminals out on the streets today. Yes, we did that. Are you happy about that? Are you happy that egg prices and fruit prices are essentially, they are going up now? The thing that you said that you didn't want is happening. It is going up. So let me leave it at that. Oh, by the way, just in case, because there's a large percentage of people out there that have diabetes, your insulin prices are going up to a point where you might not be able to afford it. Also, some of the scientific studies that have stopped on Alzheimer's, which is known as type 3 diabetes. So diabetes is linked to Alzheimer's, and we need to know more, but you don't want to know more. You ended the studies for it, and you voted for it, and you're happy about it. I'm glad you got what you want. This is going to be awesome. I can't wait to see where this is going to go next. My name is Joe Peroni. This is the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.